So this presentation is all about imposter syndrome. We're going to be covering what it is and isn't, who is affected, and what are its key features. Let's get started. So imposter syndrome isn't actually a mental health condition. You won't find it, for instance, in the DSM. And surprisingly, it isn't rare. Did you know that up to 70% of the population have been or are affected by imposter syndrome at some time in their lives? And it isn't limited to just a narrow band of people, although people who suffer do have certain character traits, which we'll look at in a moment. So imposter syndrome is the overwhelming feeling that we don't actually deserve our success, even when we're at the height of our success or being really successful. Crazily enough, we're convinced that we're not as intelligent or creative or talented as the people around us think that we are. People like our bosses or our colleagues or our peers. We suspect that our achievements are either just really down to good luck or being in the right place at the right time. And because we feel like this on the inside, but others are telling us and seeing us very differently on the outside, we start to feel like a fraud or an imposter. Most often, people who suffer from imposter syndrome carry around this ongoing feeling of being scared somehow that they're going to be found out at any minute. And so to prevent this, they work extra hard and they triple check their work and they expect perfection. They often have a strong inner critic and ongoing anxiety that they carry around. And so it varies the degrees of seriousness with imposter syndrome. It can be quite mild and centered around certain projects, or it can be very serious and involve ongoing fear of exposure, feelings of isolation. And because we feel like we're going to be found out at any moment, then that fear of rejection. Imposter syndrome often strikes at moments of success. So starting a new job, for instance, or receiving an award or a promotion, or taking on extra responsibility such as teaching others. Most importantly for us, it can be around starting a new business. And so we're really wanting to look at that as most of us as graduates might step out with this idea or intention of developing a new therapy practice, becoming an art therapist or a counselor. These titles and this new business can be very overwhelming in this sort of context of imposter syndrome. So what are the common symptoms? Let's have a look at that. So one of the key things is self-doubt, the feeling that I'm not worthy and I just don't deserve this success. That feeling of perfectionism, so we can set unreasonably high goals. And even though we're actually achieving these things fairly well, we're rarely satisfied with our performance, always focusing on the one thing that we might have gotten better. And often it can lead to us avoiding responsibility. So even though we might be invited to maybe speak or take part in something, or even have, the opportunity of working with new clients or a new client sector, we can actually say no to these things for fear of failure. So we avoid responsibility and not take the risk. Other common symptoms involve denying our success. So when we actually do work so hard and create these achievements, we can actually just say it was easy or we were lucky. Again, not knowing that we actually created that through our hard work, our endeavor, and our own skills. Negative self-doubt is one of the key parts of imposter syndrome and one of the most damaging. This extreme inner critic or negative self-talk that can be carried around inside our head, always questioning us or criticizing us, telling us what we did wrong. And this can be very debilitating if it's not addressed. All of these things can lead to having a sense of anxiety. It can be a low-grade underlying nervous tension, or it can increase up to really strong anxiety and becoming overwhelmed and experiencing panic attacks. So in summary, imposter syndrome is a self-fulfilling pattern of thought where we doubt our own intelligence and our own talents. We can think that we're fooling everyone around us, and so deep down, we believe ourselves to be a fraud or an imposter. And the symptoms of imposter syndrome include feelings of inadequacy and self-doubt, exhibiting perfectionistic tendencies, avoiding responsibilities, fearing judgment and discovery of not being good enough, being the wrong person in the right place, denying our own success, having that strong inner critic, and carrying around ongoing levels of anxiety that can range from relatively low grade but deeply entrenched to quite high levels of ongoing anxiety. So, learning to live with it is really the key. It isn't something that we can cure overnight. If we're working to support ourselves through this, or as therapists supporting others, understanding that we can actually learn to live with it really, really helps. So understanding and naming it, knowing that this is a syndrome, that it's really common, and really being able to identify quite quickly those key symptoms and how they're showing up in us or our clients. Knowing that we aren't alone helps, that there are actually many, many people that feel the same way and suffer in the same way. It makes us feel like, okay, that I'm not crazy. There's not something wrong with me particularly. This is actually quite a common thing. And finally, managing our thinking really helps. Not letting that inner critic run riot in our thoughts that obviously creates issues with how we feel about ourselves and our work, and then obviously affecting our behaviour. So understanding and naming it, knowing we aren't alone, and managing our thinking are all ways that we can learn to live with and cope well with imposter syndrome. So, if this sounds a little bit like you, I'm going to invite you to stop, breathe, take a really nice deep breath, really deep down into the body as feels safe and right for you. And releasing gently and steadily out any tension, any worry. And then repeat after me. You are not alone. Together we've got this. Why not use the transpersonal soul space mantra? Keep going and keep growing. You're not alone. Together we've got this. Keep going and keep growing. You're welcome to join our community. We've got a Transpersonal Soul Space community Facebook private group that you're welcome to apply to join, become a member of, and really connect in with other therapists that are new and emerging, as well as established. If you'd like more information, you can visit these resources. There's many, many bits of information and material out there on the internet, in social media, that have been written in formal manuals and books. Here's just a few of the ones that we found helpful. Wishing you well with it.